Hey everybody, thanks for joining us here at SLOconf. Thanks for joining me for No More Theater. My name is Zach Nickens. I'm in SRE Boxbow Technologies. You can find me on Twitter at _Nickens. Let's dive right in. So, in transformations, we've probably all encountered silos, where work gets divided up into these silos, and folks from those different teams and different silos, they don't work together. They don't work cross-functionally. You've probably also encountered feudalism, where folks that have control of things don't want to let go of it. They don't want to loosen their grip on their little chunk of the kingdom. Another thing that you've probably experienced, but you maybe didn't realize you were experiencing, is theater. And so theater is making efforts appear artificially complex or intractable, and thus making them require a special touch from a very certain or subset group of your organization. This is really just toil in disguise, because what they're doing is they're taking non-meaningful work and it's masquerading as meaningful engineering. And as SREs, this is what we hate. We hate toil. We want to remove the toil out of our systems and our organizations. And so how do we avoid theater? How do we avoid this toil in disguise? Well, one of the things that we can do is to grab the slow bull by the horns, right? And we want to use SLOs and SLOculture to achieve high happiness and high performance by getting rid of toil, by getting rid of this theater that's in our org and in our system. And so we need to work collectively and encourage participation in setting SLOs and creating SLOculture so that we set SLOs that are reasonable. They're reasonably achievable. We want to bring clarity to expectations with SLOs. We want to set SLOs and say, hey, we know that this is achievable. We're going to track this with an SLO. And if we start trending in the wrong direction, it will alert us and it will tell us that, hey, we need to focus on this, right? The third thing that SLOculture will do in helping us eliminate theater is it will tell us what we need to work on when. And so SLOs can clarify expectations. And so in a past life, I worked for a large unnamed DoD entity. And so this group had wanted to create a spatial data warehouse. And they asked a group of analysts to do it. That group of analysts worked with engineering SMEs, like physical real-world engineering SMEs, and they created a spatial data warehouse. They did all types of transformations on this spatial data, and then they pulled the data out of the warehouse to do statistical analysis for this DoD branch. Well, what actually happened is they created a black box, and after a couple of years, the agency wasn't seeing results. And they started to look into things, and it turns out they spent about $15 million over a couple years to build a black box system that nobody really understood. And so the cleanup team was brought in to take a look at things and try and salvage this program. And what we did is we set up SLOs, right? We set SLOs so that we could clarify expectations on things like spatial accuracy and spatial precision before data was ingested into the warehouse, and then after it was brought into the warehouse and it was used to do statistical analysis. Time it took to prep data to get into the warehouse, and how long that data could sit in the warehouse before it needed to be replaced by new data collected in the field. We set those expectations with SLOs by setting, okay, hey, what's possible? What can we actually do? And then we're going to hold ourselves to these standards. And by holding ourselves to these standards, when we started to trend in the wrong direction, we could look at it and say, hey, okay, we need to stop working on ingesting new data. We have spatially inaccurate data coming out of our system. We need to try and go into the system and fix what's wrong. And coming out of that, we got rid of the theater surrounding our black box. We still had a black box, but at least now we knew how well it was working. And we could when to work on improving it and making it less intractable, and when to focus on we need to service our customers and keep our customers happy. Another thing SLOs can do for you is to reduce heroism, right? And so I worked in another past life. I worked with probably the smartest person I've ever worked with. He was an amazing engineer, but he had a bad habit of being a Brent from the Phoenix Project. And so he wanted to jump in and dive in every single time anything happened, right? And so he was always wanting help, and he definitely wasn't a negative or hard person to work with, but we needed him to stick to his R&D work. We needed him to be engaged when things really, really needed his attention, and when things didn't really need his attention, we didn't need the heroism. And so by using SLOs and error budgets, we were able to say, hey, we need your help right now. Or we let the SLOs dictate, like, oh, this is a minor blip. You don't need to break your focus. You don't need to context switch. You can stay engaged on the work that the organization designates as high value work for you, and the rest of us can handle these minor interruptions. And so by reducing the heroism, we reduce the theater that comes along with heroism, right? We don't have to make a show out of doing the work, whether we mean to or not, because the SLOs will tell us what work we need to do when. And that's really, really important. So another thing that SLOs can do for us is they can help accentuate shared responsibility. When we adopted an SLOculture at previously unnamed DoD branch, it transformed our org, right? And so we were dealing with massive amounts of data, especially physical utilities and systems data. And so we're dealing with petabytes of data. And so we adopted a slow approach to say that we're going to set SLOs for all of our systems. We're going to set technical SLOs. We're going to set operational SLOs. And then we're going to make all of those visible across our org. And so every team inside of this org would publish, on an internal site, our SLO boards, right? And so everybody involved, managers, officers, govies, contractors, IT engineers, physical engineers, SMEs, and uniforms, right? Everybody, you could see the SLOs for your org, your corner of the org, and every other corner of the org. And so we were all able to be aware of who was working on what, when, and what a group's priorities might be. And so if I need help from a group of SMEs in another part of the org, I can look at their SLOs and see, hey, they're available to work on new features. Now's a great time to collaborate with them. Or I might see that, hey, they're probably not available to work on new features or new data sets because it looks like they're having issues in some part of their org. They're probably focused on that. I'm not going to add to their tangle, right? And so eventually what this did is it brought the pieces of the org that were before they were siloed, and then they became fiefs in a feudalism system. We managed to start bringing them together and say, hey, look, our name redacted org, here's how we're all performing. Hey, I ran into the same problem. I can try and help you with this problem because my part of the org suffered from this same drawback before. And so getting to high performance, right? Getting to high performance as an organization is when we do the work that needs doing at the right time. Our jobs are hard enough, right? We're trying to do incredible things. Let's not add more complexity to what we're doing by adding toil in. And if we can do that, we can get to high happiness at the same time. By getting to high happiness, we can be high performing without burning people out and without burning people up. Because when we find the hidden toil in our system and we eliminate that hidden toil, Now we can focus on the work that needs doing, on doing the work that is worth doing in that time. And that's how we get to high performance. And we can do it without burning people out and without burning people up. And that's how we get to high happiness for our managers, for our engineering teams, and for our customers. Ultimately, we're here to make customers happy. Whoever consumes whatever we're building, we want to make them happy. And we do that by getting to high performance without burning people up. Thanks for coming. I hope you enjoy SLOconf.